Hello and welcome to Essex by the Sea. I'm Owen, exploring the Essex coast, finding out about all the amazing and interesting stories it has to offer. Each summer, thousands of people flock to the Essex coast, many either owning or hiring a beach hut. And Tendring coastline in particular has many miles of small wooden huts, brightly coloured, possibly cheekily named, and bursting with seaside paraphernalia. And here in Frinton, the seaside beach huts are looking glorious as they stretch as far as the eye can see. Nancy Stevenson has written a book about life and stories in beach huts here in Essex. And Nancy joins me now. Hello.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've taken a little seat in a little shelter overlooking the Greensward here in Frinton and the roofs of the beach huts as they stretch out before us. What made you write the book in the first place, Nancy?
Well, I spend a lot of time walking up and down the beach here. I'm a very keen walker. And I don't have a beach hut. I don't have beach hut experiences. And every time you walk past, you look at the names. And I really wondered what people did in beach huts, what their experiences were. I sort of quite often was peeking in, but I really wanted to find out more, not about the names or the dates of, the history, the dates history. I wanted to find out more of the living history, how people enjoy a day at the beach.
And I guess that is very varied. Similarly, in the way that they're painted in brightly colours, they've all got their own little characters, even though quite often they're quite standardised wooden structures. A lot of people bring their own personality to their beach huts.
They most certainly do. And one of the questions I was asking people was about beach hut style. And it goes from we bought the beach hut and we completely reworked, restyled, took out the interior, took the walls off, it goes from that sort of complete rework to people who say, well, it's a hut and it has our beach stuff in it and we love it, but we're going to paint it, we're going to stain it red cedar because that's what Dad did. And we've still got the beer crate that we had when we were kids, which is the step in. And this is the way a hut should be used. So such a diversity of different ideas about what a hut should look like, what it should contain, whether it should be sort of a little palace full of little vintage knickknacks and bunting and things like that, or whether it's just facilitates a good day on the beach.
Some people will spend a lot of their lifetime in their beach hut, almost a second home, as it were.
Yeah.
Others, perhaps, it'll be a fleeting visit, perhaps once a year, to the beach. It's a place to shelter from the rain, a place perhaps to, as you say, keep the beach towels whilst you go and have a paddle in the water, maybe.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that for some people, there's a year in a beach hut. And so people told me about, sort of in winter we come down and we're all wrapped up and we come and we have our coffee here and we walk the dogs. And in spring, for many people, it's the time where you sort of like spruce up your hut. So it's almost part of the ritual of having a hut. In order to have your long sunny days, you need to do the preparing it for your family and your friends who'll come in the summer. So it's part of that process of having a hut. It's an exciting bit for many people. Doing the work at home might be a little bit boring and mundane, but people feel very differently about doing up their huts.
It's, I suppose, a way of life, isn't it? And if you're close enough to the coast, or perhaps travel a bit further, it's those times when perhaps memories are formed and that perhaps go back generations you alluded to there as well.
Everyone I interviewed, basically, I walked up to them and said, hello, can I talk to you about your hut? And sat down with people who would tell me about a day in the hut, but often then would talk about their childhood memories, maybe not in the same hut. But some people had family huts since the 1940s. There was one lady I spoke to who had a hut for many years. Her granddad had it. The hut is called Bimbo, which I thought was slightly strange, but it's actually the nickname of her granddad. So I've spent years walking past this hut thinking, that's a funny name for a hut. But actually it was the name of one of the acts, or I think one of the clowns on the pier at Walton, and apparently her granddad looked like this clown and was called Bimbo. And that hut is still painted in approximately the same colours. I did interview people in Walton and Frinton because I have to say, it's quite difficult to tell where one place starts and the other place ends. So I've got stories from the two places, which were great, and cheeky names up and down the coast as well. I'd done 3 surveys of the whole lot, looking for a pattern. There is no pattern really. They are called, hut comes up a lot as a word, beach, sea, but beyond that, I mean, they really are personal explorations, wordplay, a whole range of things. Sometimes family names woven into the name of a hut. But yeah, there most definitely isn't a sort of, I don't know, a standard way to name a hut. It's so personal. It's like naming your child, really.
They are also unique in their character, whether that's through the name, as you say, the paint colour, the items that people might fill it with. Yet it is essentially a shed.
Indeed.
But a very, perhaps one that is looked after more than perhaps it was at the bottom of your garden.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it is a shed, but then I guess when you think about it, people love their sheds as well, don't they? So it's a very special shed. When I first asked it, several people said to me, "Oh, it's only a shed." But then they go on to tell me these stories about the memories that they had, perhaps parents who had passed, a whole range of things that made you realise it really wasn't only a shed, it was so much more. For several of them, they essentially were almost like time capsules. So I write about this in the book, quite close to the end, where someone says, I can walk into this space, and it's a woman in her 60s, I can walk into this space and I'm transported to my childhood. And I was thinking about that, because I've got a vase of my grandma's. I can remember, in my mind, I can remember what my grandparents' house looked like, but I can't imagine what would it feel to walk into a space from your childhood. I'm quite envious now, because I had never really thought about the possibilities of time travel in a beach hut. And that's fascinating, isn't it? And I don't know about you, I have no spaces like that. And it's just, I'd love to be able to walk into a space which took me back to childhood in a very all-encompassing way. There's Grandad's mug, and there's some photos, and here's a drawing that I did years and years ago, and here's some shells we collected on this day, and all of those things still sitting.
Looking out over the beach here at Frinton, the golden sands stretching out, the tide is just coming in. Glorious sunny weather in Frinton quite often. Not so much as we're recording this episode, but even so, it is an escape. You're looking out to sea, letting the day go by. There must have been some stories that you uncovered as part of your research for your book that were perhaps a little bit surprising.
Well, I spoke to the woman who married the boy from the beach hut next door. That was a lovely story. And it was a lovely story partly because of the way that it was told, in that I'd been told about this lady. She wasn't someone I just bumped into, so we arranged to meet. And we sat in her hut to start this big story. And the weather was amazing. It was September, and it had been raining a lot, and the sky had just cleared. And the sky was absolutely stunning. And the two of us, I'd gone to collect a story. The two of us just sat and looked at the sky for half an hour. So this really big story about a wedding was completely eclipsed by the stuff that nature was doing. But then she went on to tell me a really lovely story about a friendship, childhood friendship, which continued into adulthood, and they're now married. There was another lovely story with 2 sisters and a friend of their mum's, which was told in unison, and the 3 of them finished one another's sentences. They were recalling the past. And again, it was an everyday story. It was a story about, the dads being there and the kids being there and birthdays and things like that. But they all finished one another's sentences, and they kept on coming back to several lines. There was a thing where the dads were farmers, and they were there with their, lying on the wall with their big farmers' bellies, drinking a glass of wine, and they kept on coming back to this, and everything also revolved around cake. So it'd be, and we did this, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah, and we had cake, and I had cake when they interviewed me. There was a lot of cake to be eaten. So again, quite lovely stories, but often about little things. very small things, small everyday family things, which are not very spectacular. You know, they're just the everyday, just the everyday.
It is those everyday stories, but what you've described through your research, it's been those memories. And in your book, I guess it's capturing those memories, because once people move on, those memories are gone. So it's nice to be able to capture that in almost a sort of historical context as to this is what beach life has been like in the UK for centuries.
Yeah, and I think, I was quite lucky because I collected these stories in a very turbulent time. So I started collecting them in 2019, and they were stories about sort of the kids don't want to come here very much, grandkids don't want to come here, they'd rather be in Spain. And those stories changed very rapidly to we're so lucky to have this. This is a place where that we can meet as a family. This is a place that is meaningful to us, and it's a place that we'll keep forever. So I think that was an interesting thing. I think the other thing is that, okay, these are not my stories. I'm not a beach hut person. I don't have a childhood in a beach hut. But they're stories that resonate so strongly with me. Just those memories of childhood, of being with your parents, those stories that had so many things that people said. It was like, oh, I can remember that in my childhood too. So I think they're stories about families, and they're stories about the little things that we do that have meaning. And, okay, they're about beach hut people. They're about people, really. And I think quite often if we read about things, we read about the big stories, don't we? And actually, for most of us, our experience of the things that matter is about really small stuff. Beach huts are small. They contain small stuff. People have memories which might be construed to be small and mundane, but they are the fabric of life. So essentially, a beach hut is a sort of little receptacle of memories. It can be a meeting place. It's a place for family life to be enacted. It's a place to be away from the everyday, a place to sort of camp out, do the simple stuff. I think they're such special spaces.
Given all the work that you've done for your book, then, would you be tempted to get a beach hut yourself?
Well, one of the lucky things that I have now is that several people have lent me their beach huts. So as I was writing this up, I was offered a beach hut to write in, and I did think, I'm not sure if I could write in a beach hut. I had one at the Whalings for one day. Lovely Clive, who runs Frinton Summer Theatre, said I could borrow his hut for a day. Went down there, spent about maybe an hour looking at the sea and the sky, thinking, I'm not going to be able to write here, this is too lovely. And then I wrote till it was dusk, basically. And then someone else who has some rentals called Ladybird Seascapes, she lent me a hut in November when I was doing some of the editing. And the same thing, this time I knew, bring a hot water bottle. But there were blankets there, and I wrapped up, and there was a massive storm going on outside. And I watched the storm for about an hour, and then I wrote and wrote and wrote. So beach huts are also amazing places to be on your own.
You mentioned about using beach huts as a base to write, and you looking out at the storm passing. Very similar to as we are in this shelter looking out. It's blue sky again now over Frinton. How different 10 minutes can be. But I suppose when you're tucked in a beach hut looking out, it's kind of a window on a world that's just passing you by.
Yeah, and again, so many people talked about that. A number of people talk about actually when the weather is particularly bad, choosing to go to their hut and to watch the storm, because there is something about being tucked in the warm and, here looking out over the sea, and you've got such a massive horizon. So you can see the storm coming in, and you can see all the colours of it, and you can see it reflecting off the sea. You really do have the most wonderful view from a hut. Yeah, I think there is a great deal of privilege around being able to go down in storms, or occasionally when it snows. You being able to come down in any weather and to really just enjoy the experience.
Nancy, beach hut people, is the title of your book. Where can people get a copy from?
You can order it from most independent bookshops. Obviously, the independent bookshops here stock it. My publisher is called Eleanor. She's based at the Nose Bookshop, and Publishing Household is the name. And you can get it through them. But if it's not in your local bookshop, then order it, because your bookshop will be able to get it for you. So it's $10.99 bargain. And it's a nice little book about people, really. You don't have to have a beach hut to be interested in what people do at the seaside, really.
Absolutely not. Sure, it will bring a smile to your face when reading it. Is the next book going to be themed on the coast?
The next book is a little bit more... I'm interested in the idea of people retreating, and that started from the beach hut thing, because a number of beach huts are called Retreat, and a number of people have talked about retreating to their beach huts. I run writing retreats, and I thought I'm interviewing people at the moment about different ideas around retreating, what that means. Retreating into nature, retreating by walking, retreating and gardening. So it might be coastal, it's early days, lots of interviews at the moment.
A number of people retreat to the coast, particularly this part of the coast as well.
Indeed. So that's where it started, from people saying, when I asked them about their beach huts, it's my retreat, it's my sanctuary. So starting off from that and exploring the idea more broadly, really.
I look forward to that book coming out. But don't forget, Beach Hut People is available from all good bookshops. So go and get your copy now. Nancy, thank you so much for joining me here on Essex by the Sea. It's been lovely to meet you, and the sun is back out.
I know. Yes, typically it has rained for the last 10 minutes, but now the sun is out again. It's been a pleasure.
Well, if you've been listening to this episode of Essex by the Sea whilst sitting in a beach hut, do check out the other episodes that are available. If you'd like to support the continued production as well, then information about how you can do that can be found on the Ko-fi page. A link can be found in the description. Also, if you've not yet followed Essex by the Sea on social media, then do go like, follow and subscribe on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and also now on Threads as well. So, till the next time, thanks very much for listening.